There's Kyle. Well, you missed out on the lap dances from Hazard, Kentucky, Kyle. But there we go, man. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just that silly story, but a lot of football coming this way. The playoffs are in swing. Sectionals are starting, and it's time to live or die, right?
Yeah, so it should be a really good week of football this week, I think. So yeah, looking forward to it.
What are some of the we talk about sometimes you get these early games that are bigger games that you'd really rather than not be until the finals. But are there any bigger games tonight or this weekend rather that are coming sooner rather than we'd like to see them?
Yeah, I would say there's a few. I would say most of it kind of worked out this year where you see most of the sectional finals should be the better games, which is kind of how you want it to be. Right. Such as Carmel, Brownsburg should be playing next week. One of the bigger games up here is Fishers and Hamilton Southeastern, but HSC won that game pretty handily last time, and that should set up where they'll play Westfield next week, and those are two teams. I think HSC is 7th in 6A and Westfield's number 2, so that'd be a top 10 matchup probably next week. Although Fishers is a pretty good team, so. And then Lawrence North and Warren Central, 2 more top 10 teams probably will play each other next week. So, especially in 6A, I would say most of the better games are set up to play next week, which is how you kind of line it up if you were seeding it. I'm going to go cover Mooresville and East Central tomorrow night, which should be, in Class 4A, that's a top 10 matchup. Mooresville is ranked number 6. And East Central, I believe, is they're in the top 10 as well. They're 8-2 and lost to Roncalli in a close game. So, they're definitely a team that can knock off Mooresville potentially, and Mooresville around here, one of the better 4A teams, certainly in the state as well. So that should be one of the best games of the night. So mostly it's in the smaller classes. I would say you have some better. Closer matchups, I would say. And 6A, you're always going to have some, but not. I think it kind of worked out this year for the most part with, teams kind of lining up to play each other in the championship game.
Yeah, it sure does. I'm looking across there, and it looks like they almost did it on purpose because it looks pretty good from a draw standpoint as the teams can move on, which is what you want to see. That more championship type play. 5A or anything sticking out there for you?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, Cathedral and Decatur would play next week too. That'd be number 1 versus number 2 in 5A. So maybe the one team that has a chance in 5A, to maybe play with Cathedral, I would say, is Decatur. Cathedral has to play Plainfield this week. But Plainfield, they're definitely, if they were in a different sectional, they'd have a chance. I just don't think with this particular Cathedral team, they probably have much of a chance. But Decatur, the problem they have is their quarterback, Asen Stevens, who's Tommy Stevens' younger brother, who's played in the NFL, and he's a really good player, going to be a Division I. He's only a junior, but had an ACL injury earlier this season, so they've had to move Javon Tracy, who's a great athlete, and he'll be playing at Miami of Ohio next year. One of those, the third in the line of the Tracy brothers who've been playing forever at Decatur, it seems like. But he's moved to a quarterback, and he's not necessarily a quarterback. He's an athlete who's a great athlete, playing a receiver mostly and running back and defensive back. But they've had to move him to quarterback, where he's dangerous. But that has diminished their team not having Asen Stevens. So, but we'll see. I think Decatur may be the one team that could give Cathedral some trouble potentially, and that game would be next week as well. And then 5A, you also have Columbus East and Whiteland playing tonight or tomorrow night. And Whiteland, I'd say the better team. Columbus East kind of having a down year.
Yeah, I was going to point that game out because Whiteland has won they finished the season winning their last 3 games. They went from 2-3 to 5-3, and Columbus East, man, having gone to Floyd Central and been in the Hoosier Hills Conference, well, they didn't dominate. We were there, of course, but after that, they've dominated for like 13 years. I mean, I think they won the conference title 13 straight years at least, maybe. Or I don't think they lost a game in that period, rather.
Yeah, I
And
think it went back to almost 20 years. They haven't had a losing season even since 2002. So, Bob Gaddis had always had that program on, top notch program, and so they're going through a little bit of a changeover. And and Darren Fisher at Whiteland, if people don't know, he's one of the best coaches around in Central Indiana, and they had a really good team last year. They're probably not quite as overall as talented this year, but if Cathedral hadn't been in their way in the regional last year, that's a team that could have gone a long way, and they routed New Pal last year in the sectional finals. So I would say they're probably I think they'll beat Columbus East, and then it's a matter of Franklin's only 3-6, but they're a good team. New Pal 6-3, and they're a good team. So that sectional 14 probably is pretty wide open, I would say. And even Columbus East is not they're 4-5. They're not terrible, but I would give Whiteland probably a slight advantage to win that sectional. And, but that's, again, one of the more, wide open sectionals. It's good to see, one of those teams will, get through and should be a pretty good challenge as they get into the regional round.
Yeah, Lebanon, Roncalli, that's a heck of a matchup. Lebanon having a good year at 7-3, but Roncalli finished undefeated.
Yeah, Lebanon started 0-3 and then got it going, and they had a tough schedule obviously to start, but they've got it rolling now. Roncalli is just a different their offensive line is just massive. I don't think they'll have too much trouble in this one. They beat Lebanon pretty handily last year. Like I said, Lebanon's better, I think, and Roncalli's probably they're probably slightly better too than even their state championship team last year, but they're really a senior led team, and they're just so solid. I don't know if there's a whole lot of 6A teams even that could beat Roncalli. So, they're just one of those teams. This is a kind of an interesting year because all these top teams like Center Grove, Cathedral, Roncalli, at least in those three classes, 4A, 5A, 6A, are, I would say, pretty clearly the number one teams. Roncalli may be the one where you'd say, a team like East Central or Mooresville or, some outlier may have a chance to beat them. Whereas, Cathedral, it's going to be, I think most people have already penciled them in as a state champ. I think Center Grove, maybe to a slightly lesser extent because of the challenges that 6A provides. But I would say they're, those three classes, I think if those three teams don't win it, it would be somewhat of a surprise.
We need a Center Grove Cathedral matchup.
Again?
They played earlier this year.
Yeah, the last game of the season, it was 21 in the Mud Bowl. So
I missed that. What was the score? 21 to, was it close?
21-6, but it was 6-0 late in the Cathedral led that game late in the third. It was
holy cow,
huge game around here. I mean, it was tons of people.
I think you did. They said that. Yes, need another one. Need another one on synthetic turf. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. Let's just line them up, and that would probably be interesting. It sounds like, but
yeah, I think most people would be in for that. It would be a huge, the crowd was huge. It was a great game. It was, they played at Arlington on the grass, and it was a mess. And Center Grove people still mad that they had to play there. But I think Cathedral probably, they played most of their games at Arlington this year. They're playing this week at Indy on the turf. So I think Center Grove people are like, well, why didn't we get to play on turf when we played? But they won the game nonetheless, and it was a really good game though. I'd say it was 21-6, but it was 6-0 Cathedral late in the third before Center Grove kind of got going finally, and had a long run and then a long pass by Taven Jackson made it 14-6, and they stuck one in the end zone in the last 30 seconds that made the score look bigger than it actually was. But Cathedral, they were the one team this year to hang with Center Grove, and I don't know if playing on turf, I think they'd hang with them too. They did last year. They almost beat them last year in the last game. So that's a game. It's been kind of the best game of the year each of the last 2 years, probably the two best teams in the state, I'd say.
Well, looking forward to it and all of them, and make sure you guys get out and go to these games and support the high school football games.